Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches English Language. This video is another one on creative writing, but today we're going to focus on language features and how you can use language to really wow your examiner. I'm going to take you through 5 tips. Some of them include devices that you can use, and some of them include some little things that you might want to avoid. So let's get started. Okay, so language tip number 1 is to create a semantic field in your work. So first things first, let's do a quick vocab check. What is semantic field? So this is when you have a group of words that all have very kind of similar meanings or associated meanings running through them. And what you would do with a semantic field is that you would actually kind of plant these words or images all the way through the text. It can be really, really great for creating setting and atmosphere. So here's an example of one. Let's take the semantic field of war. So words in the semantic field of war would all be to do with battles, etc. It might be synonyms for war, but it might also just be words that have a very kind of close association. So here we have battle, which you could argue is a synonym for war. We've got soldier, taking part in a war, weapons, used in a war, and then this word here, this abstract noun, futility, which is a word that is commonly associated with war, the futility of war, like the pointlessness of war. So if I was writing a piece of work, now, if the piece of work was about war, then you would naturally expect to see these kinds of words. But you might also use a semantic field of war to create a kind of symbolism or to create a metaphor to suggest that something was incredibly tense or that there was a lot of conflict in a situation. Which brings me on to my next language tip, which is this. Create an extended metaphor. Now, I'm working on the assumption that you are happy with what a metaphor is. In your creative writing, you've probably been taught from a young age to use similes and metaphors where you compare one thing with another. If it's a simile, using as or like. If it's a metaphor, saying it is another thing. So an extended metaphor is when that initial metaphor is developed or repeated across a whole text or a section of text. It might be within one paragraph, it might be within a chapter, it might be within a whole novel. Obviously, if it's your own writing, it might be across the 2 pages that you might be writing in your exam conditions. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to solely use metaphor. You might use lots of devices that all contribute to this overall idea. So let me give you an example. So the extended metaphor that I've created here is that the classroom is a battlefield. So that's my metaphor. But across this piece of writing, you should be able to see how I've developed it in a variety of different ways. Let's have a quick read. Miss Adams patrolled up and down the aisles of the classroom, holding her board pen like a weapon. The students sat to attention, waiting for her next command. You may think this is futile, she said, her voice growing in volume. You may think this is needless and unnecessary, but we are waging a war against poor punctuation. The students were poised, ready to attack the pages in front of them with their purple pens of power. Okay, I apologise, it's a bit cheesy, but you get the point. So what we've got here in this extended metaphor is a variety of devices. You remember on the last slide we talked about the semantic field. So in order to create my extended metaphor, I have placed the semantic field of war all the way through this extract. And then I've got other little metaphors that contribute. So the fact that I say that I patrol up and down the aisles, it makes me sound like a sort of sergeant major rallying the troops. I've used this simile, holding her board pen like a weapon, this simile here. I've got this, the students sat to attention. Yeah, so again, like they're soldiers, waiting for the next command. So again, language associated with the battlefield. I've used the adjective futile, part of, you know, referencing back to futility. And then I've used synonyms for futile here, needless and unnecessary. And then here is my metaphor, but said in an exclamative, so suggesting lots of passion. We're waging a war. Okay, and this is where it gets a bit ridiculous, a war against poor punctuation. And again, note the way that I've said that the students are ready to attack. It's another metaphor, but it's part of this big extended one that the classroom is a battlefield, yeah, with the teacher as the sergeant major and the students as the soldiers ready to take charge. This is what we mean, okay, extended metaphor. It's a really great tip that will wow your examiners. Try to keep it simple though. You know, don't do anything too complicated because you don't want to confuse your examiner, but something like this is quite straightforward. Okay, let's move on to language. Number 3. Okay, make more emotive choices. Okay, so we talk about emotive language all the time. It's a really good buzzword, particularly when you're doing your own analysis of another person's work and you're trying to use critical terminology and you might be struggling to find a metaphor or personification. Emotive language is a great one. And what's emotive language? It's simply language choices that produce an emotion in the reader. It's there to invoke a kind of personal response or feeling. So here are some words that we, you know, ruin's not bad, but it's not the most emotive word, but words like bad and good. It was bad. The exam was bad. The exam was good. I felt happy. I felt sad. Oh, the dinner was nice. They're not doing anything. They don't make you feel anything in particular. But horrific, yeah, that's definitely packs more punch than bad. Spectacular definitely pulls more punches than good. Ecstatic suggests a much more heightened emotion than just happy. Devastated, definitely more powerful, definitely more emotive than sad. Delightful, definitely better word choice there than nice. And then obliterate instead of ruin. So yes, these words are better at pulling out emotion, but also they demonstrate a broader vocabulary. These words, they're such high frequency words. You want to show a little bit more range. So language tip 3 is always go for the more emotive choice rather than the sort of overused words. Language tip 4, don't forget the way that words sound. Play on sound effects. So here we have a variety of sound devices. So you've got onomatopoeia, words that sound like their meanings. Alliteration, when you repeat the initial consonants at the beginning of a series of words. Elongated vowel sounds. So that's when the vowel sounds in the middle of the words are long and slow and drawn out. Very different to like whip, which is speedy. Consonants is repeated consonant sounds. Assonance, repeated vowel sounds. That's how you create rhyme. And we've got sibilants, which is the repeated sound. So all of these are sound devices that you can use in your work. Now you can see here I have a warning sign. There is a danger moment here, and I want to show you what I mean. So the danger is be careful about overusing onomatopoeia. Sometimes when I'm reading people's work, people like to pop in an onomatopoeic word with 17,000 exclamation marks or put it in speech marks, and it looks a bit like this. Crash, bang, thud. Those were the sounds he heard as he tumbled downstairs. You know, I mean, it's not dreadful, but it's a bit cringe, isn't it? It's much better to use those onomatopoeic words within sentences. It's a little bit childlike, I might say. So instead, something like this. The crash of his tumble down the stairs was punctuated by a sickening thud. Yeah, finishing that sentence with thud. That emphasizes the onomatopoeic kind of effect, the boom, you know. It's just a little bit more sophisticated. Now, no one is going to be upset if you pop in a crash bang wallop, but just be mindful of overusing it. And that brings me very nicely onto language tip number 5, which is this one. Do try to avoid the cliches. What's a cliche? An overused kind of expression. So something that you hear a lot. And in stories, here are some examples. It was a dark and stormy night. Please don't start your stories with it was a dark and stormy night. There's no problem with starting with setting and creating an atmosphere. That's fine. But that expression has been used too many times. Watch out for cliched similes. He was as fast as a cheetah. I'm sure you can think of something else that's fast. I'm sure, because everyone says cheetah, just as everyone tells me that it was as cold as ice. Find something more inventive than that. I know, ice is cold, I get it, but everyone writes that, and you want to stand out, okay? Don't stand out by sounding crazy. Choose something that's cold, but just try and step away from the cliche. And my last one, and then he woke up. It was all a dream. Or was it? Now, the "it was all a dream" cliche is one in itself, but then it's like a load of people went, oh yeah, better not use "it was all a dream" cliche. I'll spice it up a little bit with a "or was it?" Do try and avoid it. It's a little bit lazy, you know, that it was all a dream. That's kind of like, whoopsie, run out of time. How am I going to resolve this? Oh, I know, he'll wake up and it will all be a dream. Plan your work and then you won't have to resort to these kinds of cliches. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was helpful, gave you some do's and some don'ts there. So do have a practice, play around with it, see how it feels, pass it to your teacher and ask for a little bit of feedback. If you've got any questions or comments, just drop me a line in the comments and I will respond to you. If this was helpful, do click that button and subscribe because there are loads more videos coming your way. Check out my playlist as well for videos on language and literature GCSE and much more. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you so much. Happy revising and happy writing.